Shane Connette, welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here.
Man, it's good to be here.
Yeah, survived snowpocalypse.
Did it? Yep.
Good. That was a fun 2 weeks, wasn't it?
It was. Yes.
So I guess first thing starting off is just maybe tell me what was your life like before real estate, and then what kind of specific skills or from your past career that helped you become successful in this new role you're in.
Yeah. So was in the automotive industry for 17 years. Got in when I was 17 years old, and got my degree in economics and went straight into Toyota corporate. And at 17 I was working at a Toyota dealership and got some great experience there. Some marketing and warranty and just got a good understanding baseline. And then my stepdad, who's big in the car business, he said, "Man, you got some great foundation in the ivory tower. Let's get you back into retail. Get some more experience, and we'll get you a store." So went back in, did sales, finance manager, sales manager. Kind of got the bases there in South Florida, and then got recruited up here by Dave Edwards Toyota, which is now Hudson Toyota or Spartanburg Toyota, and Rodney back, great friend of the family. And he, when he called me up, I was, my wife and I were starting to think about having kids, and we had been married for 5 years and started looking at the area, and I took the job without even visiting, and it was the best thing I ever did. So moved up here, was working there. We was with Audi of Greenville after that, and then the Benson Group for about 7 years after that. And so kept having kids. Started. Now I have 5. A 7-year-old boy, 6-year-old girl, 4-year-old boy, 2-year-old boy, and a 6-month-old girl. So when it was about 3 years ago, I had seen a lot of guys not be successful as fathers in the business. Very successful and very grateful for all the general managers who gave me opportunities to be successful in the car business. But just looking forward, I kind of saw that hey, look, when my son goes to school, this doesn't work anymore. We were dedicated to having dinner at home every single day. And it was at 9 o'clock. My kids are going to bed at 10. We say we're on Spanish time, and I was like, man, when they go to school, I'm never going to see them. This isn't going to work. And so it made it work, but and so I was looking at, okay, so what should I do? Got a coach to kind of look at what could be some other options other than the car business, and real estate kept popping up, and so got my license, and I was like, hey, well, it probably makes more sense to get my license in Florida. That's where my reach is. That's where I know people. It's where I know the area, and so got in Florida. But in the meantime, I fell in love with South Carolina, just the culture, the people here, being close to the mountains and still being able to go to the beach and a cheap flight back to Florida if I ever wanted to remember why I left. And so it was then kind of just switched to, okay, so let me get my license in South Carolina. And it was like, in the morning, I wasn't going to give up the gym. I wasn't going to give up my time with the family. So I would go to the library in the middle of the day, while I was still selling cars and got my license in South Carolina. Was with a boutique real estate group here, and was doing more like investing. So for the past 3 years, was more involved on the investment side, and different client for sure. But then met Kyle Sizemore here and Jeff Sutherland, and they started talking to me about EXP Realty, and just a really cool concept because I was like, I want to bring the sales skills that I have over, and I want someone to have my flank, to have my back and to some coverage with a group, a team. But in real estate, typically when you're on a team, they take half your income, right. And there's some protection that comes from that. They mitigate risk. They're giving you leads, and everything like that. But, it was like, I still have a family to support. My wife stays home with the kids. And so that's the great thing about, with Kyle and Jeff, it's like, we're business partners. And so they don't take half my income, and they've really poured into and invested in me. And it's just been an awesome start, So went full time, last month, and it's been a blessing.
So really kind of brand new to it in terms of, especially like you said, on the brokerage side. And one of the things that Chris was telling me about is that you and we were talking a little bit beforehand about how you kind of hit it big with the social media. Talk to me about that. Tell me about like what exactly specifically that was, and then why you think that's working, and how you think you'll leverage that going forward.
Yeah, definitely a God thing. Not something that I anticipated happening. It wasn't by design, but my dad, he was the best salesman I ever met. He passed away 4 years ago, but he was a huge Zig Ziglar fan. And so he's like, cassette tapes growing up hearing Zig Ziglar. And one thing he always said is, in life, you can have anything that you want if you help enough other people get what they want. So that's kind of been my approach is promoting other people and, highlighting them and driving business their way. And so there was one of my buddies who I worked with in the car business, Kelby McCoy. He's with Ryan Homes right now at the Everly property. And so I said, hey man, let me go and highlight him. So we just did a video with him, and I was like, hey, listen, in a different life, Kelby and I work together, and he's one of those guys that if you do business with him, you're his friend by the end. And his beautiful properties, and highlighted it. And then it was somebody that wasn't in my sphere; they're not in my audience, because he reposted it, and they were like, called him up, and they said, hey, Kelby, you sold my family like 7 cars. And it was a great experience. And I was looking at that community that you're working in right now. Can I come check it out? And so yeah, they came over, and he was like, okay, cool. He's like, my mom wants to buy in here, my brother wants to buy in here, and they both have homes to sell. And Kelby's like, okay, well, I can't list the homes. He's like, well, who should I use? He goes, the guy in the video, right? So I get a call, and so was able to get listing agreements on both of them. And then I was like, hey, do you guys have any representation on the buyer side? And they're like, well, no, I mean, like, Kelby's got us. And, Kelby was there. And I'm like, no, Kelby's a great guy, but he represents the builder. He doesn't represent you. He has fiduciary responsibilities for them to protect the builder. And I said, so, for representation for me, I can help negotiate. I can help, things like inspections, that you maybe not think about with a new home, but, they're still man-made. So there's a lot of things that do come up that they'll fix. And so, they all 3 decided to go with me. So it was 3 buyer representation, 2 listings. And one of those listings is going live today. So it was just amazing. And then that same video, someone else calls and says, hey, my mom is looking to buy her first home. She's, has great credit, has been renting at this place for 21 years. Can you help? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. So like 6 transactions right from that one. And yeah, just it was overwhelming in a great way. And it was cool to see the support of Kyle and Jeff and just walking through, drinking out of a fire hose of 5 at 1 and did it really, really well. So yeah, it was just a blessing for sure.
That's awesome. So you just jumped right off into the deep end on it. That's so cool. Do you think social media is going to continue to be a big part of what you do, and how do you plan to, leverage that going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the thing that I would say is like, putting content out there is great. Everybody says you don't want to be a secret agent, right? And whatever you do, let people know what you're doing. And if you look at my page, it's not perfect, and the editing isn't great, but I think I'm getting better every time. And so just being vulnerable and just whatever you're doing, putting it out there and seeing some great things. I mean, in 28 days, I saw there was, like, looking at the analytics last night, it was 20,000 views on what's going on. That's and awesome. So I just continue in that. So building out the preferred vendor list. And so, guys who have done work for me, who I trust, who have high character and integrity, are people that I'm promoting. And so, like, I don't even know how to do the overlays really well right now. So like, I'm doing a video with them and I'm putting pictures of what they do. And I'm like, just put it over my face, like highlight them. So just still going with that, just really wanting to promote other people and, knowing that it'll reciprocate. So that's kind of what I'm focused on right now. So, other friends that I have in the industry, vendors and whatever, just really wanting to promote them. And then, and obviously on the other side, serving, my people. And that was a huge kind of like shift from, people are like, hey, listen, the sales skills are gonna directly correlate, from the car business over here. And they do, but it's been cool. So like my first client, with Kyle was saying, hey, like, I'll go like 2 months, I know I'm jumping in with you guys, but like, let me do like 2 months of onboarding. Let me just like take all the classes, for EXP and everything like that. And he's like, yeah, that's a good idea. Jeff's like, hey, I'll coach you every week and we'll get you ready to go. And the week after I hung my license with him, I get a call from my brother-in-law in Florida. And he's like, hey, we got these friends that are moving there from Florida and they need an agent. Can you help them? And I'm like, yeah. So it was like trial by fire, just immediately going in. Yeah. So I mean, with that, it's just been, promoting other people, serving people. And so with that, there was some negotiation that was helpful having that background, but the sales skills was going with like selling the client on being a calming presence for you and talking you off the ledge, because it's a longer process. It's not like you come in, hey, buy this car, sign up, and okay, bye. It's, typically 45 days. And so putting the white gloves on, serving people and walking them through the process and explaining the process and calming them down through every step of the process, that's more where like the sales, but I think it's more like servant sales, and here to really help people, get what they want. And so, yeah, kind of highlighting those things. So, serving people and promoting people is how I want to continue moving forward with social media.
Cool. So if someone's moving to the upstate tomorrow and only has 24 hours to live like a local, what are the 3 places you're going to be like, you got to go here and check this place out? Yeah,
I'd say first and foremost, because like when I was up here, like I moved up here I just packed up my truck and went, and I lived in Airbnb for like a month. Christopher Capps, who's an awesome veterinarian in the area, if you ever need somebody, he housed me and we stayed friends. And so the first place he brought me was the walking bridge in Greenville. Yeah. You got to do the walking bridge. Okay. Course, yeah. You get there. I'm a foodie. So once you go from one side to the other, there's like 100 restaurants in a 1 mile stretch. So that's why I definitely say walk downtown Greenville. It'll sell you on it, and then what I would say is catch a Spartanburger game in Spartanburger, which it's a really cool, really fun, cute stadium that they have there right in downtown. And then the third thing, what I would say, so when I came from Florida, I didn't understand hiking. So I'd say maybe go to Paris Mountain and do a hike. Because I was like, man, it's just like glorified walking. Do some glorified walking in one of the trails here. Paris Mountain is great.
Cool, yeah. Yeah, it's funny growing up here. I didn't even know there was a waterfall downtown until they tore the bridge down. So, yeah. Like,
that's so funny.
People are like, it's the most beautiful city to grow up in. It is.
Now.
Now, yeah. That's cool, yeah. The bridge for sure. So what's a piece of advice, again, you seem to be able to leverage kind of that social media stuff, and I like your approach of really kind of highlighting, helping other people in that process. But what would be a piece of advice you would get to like one of these veteran agents with 20 years experience that's terrified of getting in front of the camera, or feels like, like I don't even understand social, or I don't want to mess with it? What advice would you give, or how would you help them kind of overcome that?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say just start doing it. I definitely get it. Not wanting to do something new, not wanting to be vulnerable, kind of the old dog, new tricks. But, I think that you get more comfortable the more you do it. Mm-hmm. And it's the way of the future. I think that those same people, you're going to have to be in front of them. You can't do a listing presentation with a bag over your head. Yeah. They're going to see your face.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so because they're eventually going to see your face, like just get it out there early.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about before this thing started, like nobody likes the sound of their own voice. I think I sound ridiculous, and you're going to be your biggest critic, and you see and just like, oh man, I look terrible. Or, like I look, I could lose some pounds, or I could whatever. And, and there's definitely things that I pick myself apart about too, but, getting out there, I think that the more you do it, the more confident you'll be in it. But yeah, I mean, that was the best thing I ever heard, is just like when you're doing a buyer, consultation or a listing presentation, you can't have a bag over your head, so you're going to eventually have to do it. So just get out there.
Gotcha. So one of my other questions I was thinking about, again, because I mean, obviously you're doing it, but you've had, wild success here, right out the gate. So how do you handle the pressure of being the local expert, when you're still technically new to the business? And you're still, still figuring out kind of the behind the scenes stuff a little bit. How do you manage that or navigate that?
Yeah,
in a world where you're putting yourself out there as as the guy.
Being on a great team, So my team has 30 years of experience, and so the expertise is behind me. And so I'm the type, I'm never gonna guess. I'm never gonna make up an answer. It's just been something foundationally in the past 17 years. So, I'm the guy, I'm going to find the answer for you, and I'll be the first to say, hey, that's a great question, and let me get back to you on that. And then I go to the experts that are on my team. There's And yeah, so I think that's the big thing. And the cool thing with EXP is, we're always wanting to expand. So if somebody's out there saying, hey, listen, like, I'm not an expert, or maybe you are, but you're like, man, I'm a solo agent out here, I'm a lone soldier, and I want to join something bigger. Like, I'd love to have that conversation with you, bring you in, have Jeff talk to you, because he's the 25-year veteran in it, and so, the cool thing about EXP, which I think differentiates from the other, ones that I've looked at, is that they don't hold the cards close. Where I expected is that, that dog eat dog, cutthroat mentality, is that they want you to duplicate your success. Because in EXP, when one person's successful, everybody's successful. That's why I can be on a team with Kyle Sizemore and Jeff Sutherland, and they don't have to take half my income because they win when I win. And so, what I'd say is, I got experts behind me, and we're recruiting experts all the time. So if you want to join the team, we're available. Reach out to me, and I'd love to talk to you about that with the experts.
Cool. I love that. I love that team mentality, and you talked about vulnerability is really important, and just being honest.
For sure.
Yeah, that's a quite refreshing thing to run across these days, for sure. You kind of talked about it a little bit. Kind of what your North Star is or whatever. And I mean, obviously, you talked about you wanted work-life balance and that sort of thing, but certainly, this industry still has those long days and those grinding weeks and those, those tough deals and things like that. So what is the North Star, or that core reason that keeps you showing up for your clients? What is it that
Yeah. First and foremost, I don't identify with my generation. I'm a millennial, but I'm an old soul. I think that work-life balance is a myth. I'm more of like work hard, play hard. Mm-hmm. And so, to get to your question, kind of go back to, I think that like time blocking is important, mm-hmm. So there's, the social media is kind of the more sexy part of it, but then the other part is dialing for dollars. Mm-hmm. And I have 1,300 people in my database that I'm calling. And that's the boring part, and success is boring. And so, making 50 to 100 phone calls a day, that's not what you're going to see on social media. But blocking that time out. And then also for me, so my family and my faith is my North Star there. And so with that, I want to be intentional with the time with my family. So just like I block out, typically from 9 to 12 to make those phone calls, I'm blocking out time with my family. And it's set in my calendar as an appointment. And so, my kids were my big why. I didn't want to miss them growing up. I have an amazing wife, and we've been married 13 years. She's a big why for me. And then, and my faith. I don't want to ever have to compromise that. That's why I loved, doing the car business up here, because they're closed on Sundays. So, church is never going to be something that I'm going to replace with doing a real estate transaction. And then also blocking out time, like on Saturday for family time, blocking that out. And, they're my wife. I have pictures of them all over my office. And so, blocking out that time, they're my driving force. I want to be successful for them. And it's, I don't think it's a balance. I'm going to work as hard as possible, to provide for them the best that I can, but then I'm also going to block out time to have a lot of fun with them. So, yeah.
That's cool. And I like that the way you kind of define or redefine that work-life balance is, it's not necessarily certain time, it's the same time every time, but it's the fact that you've got that perspective. That's pretty cool, man. I like that. Good on you for that. So it hasn't been that long, but if you could go back to the day you got your license and give yourself one piece of advice, not about sales, but about maybe the life as a realtor, what would you go back and say, hey, buddy, you need to think about this?
Yeah. So, there was two pieces of advice that I got. And I asked people who I respect or who had been in the business kind of exactly that. Hey, if you could have, a year before getting into real estate, what would you do? And, so my brother-in-law, Travis Pano, back in Florida, he gave me some awesome advice, and he said, pay yourself a salary. So, when he gets a commission, he puts it into an account. So like I created that account with Edward Jones, and it's a 12-day money mutual account. So it matures every 12 days. And then he pays himself a salary. So they did the budget with, my sister, and said, this is what we need to live. And so it pays out the same every month. So whether he makes, $0 in a month, or he has a $50,000 transaction, he's paid out the same. So then there's the cash flow, because I think that's where I've seen a lot of really good agents fail in this business, and it's not because they weren't selling a lot of houses. It's because they weren't managing their cash flow, and their personal budget the best. And then the other piece of advice that I got was from Terry McCall, one of my longtime mentors. And he was like, Shane, you're killing it in the car business. I mean, statistically speaking, I was in the top 5% in the nation. And he was like, don't kill the cash cow too quick. And so, and he's the guy that doesn't even like the car business. And he was really supportive of me doing real estate, but he was like, don't jump in too quick. And so, not to say that like, I think people could take that on both extremes. If you go from one extreme, you'll never go in, because if you wait for the perfect time, right? Like, when's the perfect time to have kids?
Yeah,
never. Right? So just do it, right? But then the other side is you want to be prepared, because, I've been blessed to, already have, 7 signed agreements, 1 closing, but it's not immediate payout. So even though it's been a blessing, wildly successful right off the rip, the paycheck doesn't come right away.
Right.
So putting in 6 months to a year of expenses, before you go in, I think so. This last year is like, I focused on, I have a Tony Robbins coach, Russ Kyle, and he was awesome. And so we said last year we named it was the year of preparation. So it was get that kitchen renovation done that my wife has been wanting for a while. Put away 6 months to a year of expenses, and attack your debt, because there's the least amount of payments that you have, the longer kind of the life of not having an income is going to be less impactful. So I can come into real estate with all the confidence in the world, and I can I had a conversation with a client last night, and I was just like, hey, listen, like, whether you buy from me or not, it's not going to change my family or my life. Like I don't have commission breath. I'm not like, hey, I really need you to buy right now because my kids are going to eat, because I did the preparation before. Right. So that's what I would say is prepare. And if you got a good thing, going, just evaluate it. Don't kill the cash cow too quick. And come in ready to go. And not afraid that you're not going to have income coming in for a month or two.
Yeah. Awesome. That's awesome, man. I think I love hearing it. I think you're continue to be wildly successful. It sounds like you got the right priorities, and you got great people in your corner. So, thanks for coming out. Where do we find you, Shane? How do we find you?
Yeah. So on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. So on YouTube, Father of 5 Realtor. It's kind of the brand there. Instagram, it's just at Shane Connette. So it's SHANE, last name's a doozy, CONNETTE. That's the same for Facebook and Instagram. Just find me. I'm the only Shane Connette out there.
There you go. Well, that's awesome, man. Shane, thanks so much for coming in. Thanks for your time. It was really good chatting with you, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man.